Hey, what's up? It's Jared with State of Tech. Today we're going to talk about the Pixel 3 XL and the Pixel 4 XL, and we're going to compare them. So I have both of these devices. The Pixel 3 XL I was super excited about last year because the camera was said to be fantastic, and of course it ended up living up to everything and just being a real industry leader for the longest time in the camera space. And so the Pixel 3 was something that I just spent a lot of time with last year. It wasn't always my daily driver of phones, but it was the most common phone that I used last year, and I absolutely loved it. So when the Pixel 4 started to get leaked and some information started coming out about it, I was getting excited because I knew that Google probably wasn't going to completely redo everything. They already had done some really amazing things over the last couple of years with the cameras and just with some of the technology that they were putting into the phones, even though it still was a more moderately priced device compared to a lot of the flagships. It didn't have over-the-top features or anything like that, but I was excited to see where the Pixel 4 XL would go and how it would end up feeling to use it for a little while. Now, the Pixel 4 XL and the Pixel 4 are not, it isn't leaps and bounds over last year. It's kind of a natural progression of devices. It's like a second generation of a device. I mean, the Pixel phones have had decent cameras since the first Pixel, and they got pretty good with the Pixel 2, and it got really good with the Pixel 3. And so the Pixel 4 is just kind of a building on those features and adding in some new things that are going to take the Pixel forward into the future. And that is also a place that Google seems to really be in right now, is a learning place. We see that a lot in technology right now, where a lot of these technology companies are in a learning and data collection phase. They are trying to figure out exactly how we're using these devices and how they can provide different services and different solutions for how we want to use our devices. Think about what Amazon did in learning by using UPS and FedEx and the Postal Service to create their own fleet of delivery drivers and all that stuff, and how that's going to progress, and how Uber and all these other companies are using the drivers, people actually driving the cars, and using technology there to breed new technology that will help us self-drive and all that stuff. So, I mean, we're in a learning phase in technology right now, and that's definitely where the Pixel phones are. But that to be said, like, what is the purpose of a Pixel 4 when the Pixel 3 is a pretty decent phone? So in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about what's the same, what is different with these devices, and then we're going to go into why you might choose one versus the other. So let's talk about what is similar about these devices. So they are basically about the same size. The Pixel 3 XL is a little fatter, whereas the Pixel 4 is a little more narrow. They're overall pretty close, within a millimeter of each other, the same height, width, and everything is pretty close to the same size. Especially if you have a case on them, you almost can't tell the difference between the phones if you're looking at them from the side. They are very close to the same. Now, on these phones, I have also Pixel cases on them from Google. The cases, I like the finish of the case, the kind of cloth finish. I don't know, I just like the finish, and so I went with those cases. I've had other cases, but these ones I just kind of keep going back to because they're simple and they have a nice kind of, texture to them. So I have cases on my phones. Also similar is the storage options. Both come with either a 64 or a 128 gig option. And with those storage options, you don't necessarily use as much storage on a Pixel device as you would another device, because it also comes with unlimited original quality photo and video storage. And so when you shoot photos and videos on your Pixel phones, which are going to use up a lot of data over time, a lot of storage data, you're going to need to offload that, and it automatically is going to save all of those for you in the cloud using Google Photos. And after a while, when your phone starts to get full, you can actually have the app go and remove the local version of the photos. I mean, we don't really need our photos locally stored as long as they are accessible to us. That's all that we want. And the fact that the phones naturally are backing up our photos means that without us even thinking about it, our photos are backed up. They're somewhere safe. They're in a place that we can access them from other devices, and so we don't necessarily need as much storage on our devices. Being a person who has phones that go all the way up to 512 gigs, I don't utilize a fraction of that storage, and so 128 is more than enough for me, and that's what I have with both of these phones here. So both phones also get the Android 10 operating system, and even though out of the box the Pixel 4 felt a little different to me, it's mainly because there were some settings that were changed. The Pixel 4 had all gesture navigation activated, which you can activate and change. You could even change it back to the way that the Pixel 3 operates by having some buttons down at the bottom along with some gestures. So the Pixel 4 did feel a bit different out of the box because of those features and being totally gesture controlled. And I've tried to adapt to them, but it's been a little challenging. And I may still go back to using some buttons, navigation buttons at the bottom of the phone. But overall, Android 10 is pretty much the same. There is not much difference in the experience between either of these phones unless you take into account some of the hardware differences that we'll talk about later on in this video with the Pixel 4. They're both also water-resistant IP68, which is pretty standard on most phones these days. They're either going to be IP68 or even higher level of water resistance. All right, so let's start talking about what is actually different. So the Pixel 4 does have a slightly higher resolution display than the Pixel 3. It's not by much, but it is a little higher, and the pixel per inch density is a little bit deeper as well. So you're going to get a little bit better of an image quality out of the Pixel 4, but it's not really that noticeable. What is really noticeable is the fact that the Pixel 4 has a 90 hertz refresh rate on the screen, which means in situations where you are swiping between different apps, maybe in multitask using a gesture, you're scrolling up and down web pages. In some games that utilize the higher refresh rate, it's gonna look a little bit sharper and it's gonna feel a little bit better than the kind of blurriness that you get with that slower refresh rate. That rating basically is how quickly the image that you're seeing is refreshing. And in some apps and some games, it's not going to utilize that at all. So it's not going to be a different feeling at all. But in some instances, it will. And I like having the higher refresh rate. The higher refresh rate makes me feel like things are moving faster. I don't necessarily like the animations and the things that take something time to get from one place to the other. I just want it to be fast and snappy. I know these devices are capable of it because of the performance, so the 90 hertz refresh rate screen just definitely helps make that feel a lot better. Now, I mentioned earlier that they are pretty close to the same size of phones, but the Pixel 4 XL is slightly more narrow by 1.6 millimeters. I like that feeling of a more narrow phone that feels a little bit taller, even though these phones are not much different in width and height. The Pixel 4 screen feels much taller. I feel like I'm seeing more on the Pixel 4. Now, a little bit of that has to do with the fact that the Pixel 4 doesn't have a notch, but I like that narrower feel. I got my first real feel of that with, I can't remember what version of an LG phone it was, but the LG phone, it came out a number of years ago. It had a very narrow and tall screen, and I just really liked that experience. And so I'm glad that the Google Pixel 4 XL has a little bit more of a narrow screen. I want to see more in length than I do in width, especially with everything being kind of adaptable or responsive to mobile. We can see things easy, it changes, it conforms to the screen size that we're using, so I would rather have to scroll less if possible. So I did mention that there's no more notch on the Pixel 4, which is kind of nice, but it does have a little bit more of a forehead on it, which means the bezel on the top of the display is a little bit thicker. Now, Google did away with having the giant array in the notch of cameras and sensors and kind of spread that out a little bit more across the top of the display. So it's a little bit different. I don't necessarily know if I love it or hate it. I had really gotten used to the notch and maybe having, a little bit of an interrupted view on that side, but I definitely like not having apps that interact weird with the notch. So having no notch, I think, is better, essentially because the apps don't have to figure out a way around it. So the Pixel 4 has dual cameras on the back, whereas the Pixel 3 has dual cameras on the front and a single on the back. So with the Pixel 4 on the back, you have a 12 megapixel megapixel and a 16 megapixel camera, one at a standard and one at a telephoto. There's no ultra wide essentially on this phone, which is kind of a bummer. I like the ultra wide aspect, and I think it was kind of a, I just don't like the fact that they split that out and did not go with a ultra wide camera on the back of the phone. Now, of course, the Pixel 3 XL didn't have an ultra wide either, so I can't complain there in comparing these two devices, but it would have been nice to have an ultra wide. So rather than having that one single lens that does it all, now there are two on the back, and so it's using even more computational photography to make sure that our portrait photos are sharp around the edges and that we just have more functionality there with stabilization and everything else that these cameras are doing in the background. Now, the Pixel 4 XL has a radar sensor for motion sense, and right now that's fairly limited, and a lot of people have talked about it being kind of gimmicky. Now, the motion or swipe over type of gestures that don't require touching the phone is something that Samsung has kind of messed with for a number of years. But one of the reasons that I think Google is doing that with the Pixel right now is that they are in that learning process that I talked about earlier. But if you have a Pixel stand, which I absolutely love, it's my wireless charger of choice for a Pixel phone because the Pixel phones interact with the stand and work really well. So when I put my Pixel phone, whether it be the 3 or the 4, into the Pixel stand, it automatically starts to show me images in a slideshow. I can customize what displays on the screen. And so I have this nice little kind of digital picture frame playing in the background that plays different photos, and it's really kind of nice. But with that motion sense, if I'm listening to music, I can swipe my hand in front of the device to go to another track. If I want to pause the display or make everything that's on the display go away, I could just simply put my hand in front of the screen, which actually was something that worked on the Pixel 3 XL as well. But there's a lot of different hand gesture type of movements that work with the Pixel 4. And although some of them are not features that I would typically use, I really do use the swipe gesture for moving between audio tracks when I'm at my desk. So I have my Pixel 4 on my desk, I'm listening to music. If a song comes on that I want to skip, I simply use the hand gesture rather than using my voice and talking to Google, because I have to enable Google and then I also have to give it the command. And by the time I'm done doing that, I could have swipe gestured really fast and already been a few seconds into the next song. So it's just much faster to use those swipe gestures than it is to use voice. The only time that it's better to use voice is when you can't reach the phone or get close enough for those swipe gestures to work. But I'm excited to see what those things do. I've seen, videos that were teased and shown to us of being able to adjust the volume and do actually different types of gestures based on how our hands are positioned. That's going to be really cool. Being able to adjust the volume from your phone, being able to do other things like actually move through the track by using some sort of a gesture. Those things are going to be awesome when they get here. Right now, those are only things that we can do with our voice. And while that you may think, well, that maybe that's not so useful, consider the person who can't speak. Consider the person who would rather in public places use those type of gestures. I mean, there's lots of different use cases for those. And Google is definitely in the learning process now and implementing those and getting those features ready for the mainstream. Now, as far as hardware performance, both of these devices have decent hardware for the time that they came out. The Snapdragon 845 in the Pixel 3 and the 855 in the Pixel 4. And the Pixel 3 has 4 gigs of RAM where the Pixel 4 has 6 gigs of RAM. Now, last year, my Pixel 3 did get a little sluggish, but I don't necessarily think that that was due to the hardware itself. I think that there were some software issues that were contributing to it. Some other people experienced similar things, but then a lot of people also didn't experience any issues at all. Once I upgraded to Android 10 on my Pixel 3 XL, it seemed like all those issues went away. And I've been continuing to try and use my Pixel 3 XL a little bit here and there. I also did a 1 year later video on the Pixel 3 XL so that I can kind of determine whether or not that problem was going to reemerge with Android 10, and it seems to not have. So the hardware specs for the Pixel 4 XL are definitely good enough for Android 10 and to get you through definitely a full year of use, and we'll see what comes with Android 11. But with those specs, I think the 6 gigs of RAM is kind of a requirement these days based on the type of applications that we're using. If you're using bigger games like Fortnite and stuff that are heavier games, these games are multiple gigabyte downloads, you're going to want a little bit more RAM for performance. If you are a multitasker that has a lot of things going on their phone and is switching between apps, you're going to want a little bit more RAM to have available for doing different tasks on your device. Now, both of these devices have pretty quick ways to unlock. The Pixel 3 XL, I have always given a lot of praise to because of the fingerprint unlock right on the back. Pulling the pocket out of your phone, having your finger there already as it's on its way up to your face means that the phone is basically unlocked by the time it gets to your face. However, with the Pixel 4 XL, its Face ID unlock or face unlock is extremely fast. It is by far way faster than Apple's Face ID that they've been working on and improving upon for a number of years now. So whether or not it is super secure or not is questionable because some people have been able to fool it, but I've also been able to fool Face ID on my iPhone as well. So the face unlock on the Pixel 4 is actually faster than having that fingerprint reader on the back. It is extremely fast with that radar sensor and the other sensors that are in the front of this device. When you pick up the device, it recognizes that you lift it and it's unlocked by the time that you get it in front of your face and you're ready to use it. So both phones unlock fast, they just unlock fast in a different way. Now the Pixel 4 XL has a larger battery at 3700 milliamps, where the Pixel 3 XL has 3430 milliamps. Both phones get me easily all day use of battery life out of them. There was a little bit of time when I was having those issues of slowdown and lagginess with the Pixel 3 XL, where it did seem to have troubles getting through an entire day. But after Android 10 came to the Pixel 3 XL, no problem getting all-day use of battery life out of my Pixel 3, and then also I've experienced the same thing with the Pixel 4 XL. However, I will say, though it does get me all-day battery life, I cannot use it as hard as I can with my iPhone 11 Pro Max or my Note 10 Plus. Those devices, I can get more than a day's use of battery, where I do have to kind of watch how I use my device with the Pixel 4 XL. It has good battery life, and with a few little incremental software updates over the last month or two, it's gotten a little bit better, but it's not by far the industry leader in battery life. So both of these devices do pretty good. They're going to get the average user through an entire day easily. But for those of you that are more heavy device users, you may rely on a little bit of wireless charging from these devices to get you all the way through the day. So if you have the Pixel stand like I do, put it on the desk, it tops it off. There are lots of different ways that you can integrate wireless charging into your life so that when the device is sitting down for a few moments, it's charging, and you're definitely going to get a day's worth, if not a little bit longer, a battery life out of it because of those little incremental top-offs throughout the day. Both phones also have different color options. It seems that color options are changing this year with phones, and the Pixel 3 XL has fairly muted color options, whereas the Pixel 4 XL has a very vibrant color option. I think that people liked the brightness of last year's phones, even though some of the colors were muted, and so Google went really far with that, with this not so orange, which I'll be honest, does look a little salmon to me. It's not necessarily orange, as it is something that may be comparable to pink, whereas last year's pink Pixel 3 XL, or the not so pink, I think, or not pink, whatever it was called, was a hue of pink, but was closer to white. So different color options this year, definitely to fit your personality. So why would you choose the Pixel 4? Well, if you want the latest in technology from Google, the Pixel 4 has it. With all the things that I mentioned earlier and what the Pixel 4 is going to get in maybe little feature add-ons throughout the rest of the year as Android continues to grow and add more functionality and unlock a little bit more of what this device has, you're going to get more out of your Pixel 4 going into the future than you will the Pixel 3 XL. The Pixel 3 XL, though a great phone still and has a lot going for it with the camera and stuff still being top of the line for even late 2019, it's not going to get really any new features features, essentially, especially features that have anything to do with hardware. The faster processor and more RAM of the Pixel 4 XL means it's a little more future-proof than the Pixel 3 XL. So if you're trying to decide whether or not to buy a Pixel 3 XL or a Pixel 4 XL, I would maybe lean towards the one that's more future-proof. So why would you choose the Pixel 3 XL in 2019 going into 2020? Well, I think it's still a fantastic phone. Like I said before, the cameras on it are still industry leading. They are still way better than a lot of the other cameras that are coming on phones, especially phones that are priced in and around what this phone is priced. The price is also really great on the Pixel 3 and Pixel 3 XL. So you're getting a lot of value for the money, and you get even more there if you sign up for Google Fi as your wireless carrier. There are a lot of promos and stuff that Google's always running. I'll make sure to link to that down below so you can check that out. The link that I give you gives you $20 off of your first month's bill. And then also, if you buy your phone through the Google link as well, you're going to get some sort of a discount, whatever that promotion may be at the time. And right now, they've got really heavy promotions running on the Pixel 3 and Pixel 3 XL. And of course, into the future, they will add those promotions on for the Pixel 4 also. But you're getting really good deals right now on the Pixel 3, Pixel 3 XL going into the end of 2019 and into 2020. All right, so here's my closing thoughts on the device. If you are an earlier adopter of things and you like having kind of the latest in technology, obviously the Pixel 4 XL is the way to go. I know this video is a little late in the game, so you're thinking, early adopter, I would have bought it already. But these days, I think we are being more hesitant in deciding to just buy something because it's the latest one to come out. And we need more reasons in order to do that. So if you're an early adopter, yes, it's a great option to buy it. If you are somebody who's looking to buy a phone right now to hopefully last you for a few years, the Pixel 4 XL would be a great option there. Google does a pretty good job of continuing to give support to previous year devices, but they're not as good as other manufacturers like Apple is at it. And so you're going to get a longer lifespan out of a new phone than you will buying a phone that's already been out for a year. Now, if you're also price conscious, you might want to wait because typically Google does offer specials and deals and promotions like I mentioned earlier. Especially with the Pixel 4 XL, chances are in the coming months there will be some sort of a $100 off option or something like that if you go with Google Fi. And the cool thing about that is that they only really require you to be on Google Fi and just activate your phone on Google Fi. You can switch your phone number over to Google Fi and then switch it back, or you could even just get a new phone number for Google Fi on your phone. Let that take advantage of the link that I provided, which essentially is going to give you your first month free at that $20 if you don't use any of the data, and then just put your other SIM back in and utilize that. I mean, there's a lot of ways to actually get good savings on these devices. With the Pixel 3 XL, the savings are already here. With the Pixel 4 XL, chances are those savings will probably come after the first of the year. And the last thing to consider is that the Pixel 5 is less than a year away. Yes, most likely a Pixel 5 will come out in the fall of 2020. And now that we are heading into the end of 2019, if you are okay with the phone that you have already, or maybe you don't want to drop the top dollar to get the next best thing, you can get the Pixel 3 XL still for a great price. Take advantage of the promotional offerings that Google offers through Google Fi and just utilize that phone for the next year and put away a few dollars here and there towards your Pixel 5. The Pixel 5 most likely will have much more mature features compared to this Pixel 4 XL, which has a lot of new things with new options but aren't utilized to their maximum capacity yet. So with that said, I hope that this video helped you choose whether or not to purchase a Pixel 3 or a Pixel 4, or maybe whether to wait on buying a Pixel 4 because maybe you already have a Pixel 3 and you're wondering if there's a big enough difference between these two devices. So I've talked about a lot of different things here. Let me know down in the comment section below what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear about them there. I also have recently converted these videos into a podcast. A lot of people tell me, man, your videos are a little long. You should just make them a podcast. And I thought, well, maybe some people actually do want them as a podcast. And so if you'd rather listen to my videos, the link to subscribe to the podcast is down below. And I also take these videos and with the photos and stuff, I put them over on the State of Tech website. And so photos that I took with these phones that I showed you in this video, Higher quality versions of those are available on the website for you who like to pixel peep. And of course, there's a comment section there too. You can ask questions, you can share these with other people, but I just appreciate being able to communicate with all of you and have these types of conversations. So that's going to do it for this video. Click on the subscribe and the like button here on the channel if you haven't done either of those yet. And I hope to see you back here in the next one. Take care.